We have a major Arch Manning update.
Yards shy of the record. Williams breaks a hole. Williams, hello record book. Ricky Williams runs to the Hall of Fame. Touchback. Ricky Williams, touchdown.
Young from the shotgun. Back to throw. Vince looks under pressure. He'll tuck it in run. Vince to the 5. Young, touchdown Texas. Touchdown Vince Young. He's done it again.
Longhorn Nation, we're back!
Welcome into another edition of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. I'm your host, Matt Galatson, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Zach Dimmitt. Zach, we have a major update, on Arch Manning. Obviously, as we all know, he underwent off-season surgery on his foot to repair a lingering issue that was plaguing him over the last few weeks. And you would hardly notice it when he was playing, obviously, because he lit up Texas A&M both through the air and on the ground, and he absolutely diced up Michigan as well. And he played, phenomenally well over the last few weeks of the season. Even in that Georgia game, he was just, he doing everything he could to keep Texas in that game. It just wasn't to be. But he played extremely well, pretty much from the Mississippi State game on. And it's unclear when exactly he suffered the injury, but he did undergo that offseason procedure. And according to ESPN college football analyst Heather Dinich, Manning is out of his walking boot and is starting to throw again after an offseason procedure to clean up the lingering thing in his foot. And Steve Sarkisian told her that Manning will be limited, especially early on this spring. But Sark is not concerned, and will give the younger players a chance to get some more work in. It's good to see that Arch is progressing. It is good to see that he is recovering quickly from this lingering foot thing, because foot things can be scary. They can plague you for a while if you don't take care of them the right way, or if you don't go through the right rehab and all those different things. But it's good to hear that Arch is doing well right now and that he is on track for a full recovery.
Yeah, this is pretty much what Texas fans would have hoped. The only sort of major news would have been like bad news, I guess you could say. This was kind of what was expected. And so it's good that we're at that point where, okay, there's no sort of setback or anything like that, because then that would have been making a lot more major headlines. This is kind of a boring but expected update, I guess you could say, but it's a good update. So that's what Steve Sarkisian was talking about a little bit earlier this week whenever he met with the media for the first time this offseason, saying how when Arch gets cleared, he'll be cleared, and then he'll have time to start building that on-field rapport with Cam Coleman. Sterling Burkhalter is another new receiver, and even some of these true freshman guys as well, Cone Brown and some of those other guys. And then also just continuing to build the relationship with Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley. Of course, with Emmett Mosley, he didn't get the start last season, the first 4 games or whatever it was of non-conference play. So him and Arch had to build rapport as the year went on, but now a full offseason together. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. But yeah, with Arch, he's a warrior, because we don't know when this injury occurred. He didn't miss any time. The only game he was really in danger of missing was, I believe, the Vanderbilt game, because he had that concussion against Mississippi State, where Matthew Caldwell came in and threw the game-winning touchdown in overtime. But Arch didn't miss any time last year. He's a tough son of a gun, and he's a mobile quarterback, and he takes a lot of hits. A foot injury isn't ideal, of course, for any quarterback, but certainly for someone that's a little bit more mobile. But I think with Arch, he's at his best when he's not relying on his legs and picking and choosing his spots to run. I think you saw that this past season, near the end of this past season, especially in SEC play, where he wasn't just one read and then running. He was really shown major strides. Sometimes it takes a guy a whole year to show strides like that, but he went from really poor non-conference play to being one of the best quarterbacks in the conference once SEC play started. I know Oklahoma game was a little bit rough at times, and Texas kind of leaned on their defense, but Texas wouldn't have been in the CFP discussion at all if it wasn't for Arch. So, yeah, nice update there that he doesn't have the boot anymore. You'd expect that he'll be good to go for the spring game. We're still a little bit away from that. So, but yeah, at the same time, you're going to see Coastal Carolina transfer quarterback MJ Morris, KJ Lacey head into his second year, Bell. Those guys are all going to get some significant reps once spring practice starts here in a few weeks. His Arch will be a little bit limited, as Heather Dennett said. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise because those guys will get some good reps, and then once Arch is ready to come back, they'll have some good practice experience underneath their belt as the spring goes on.
Yeah, it is unclear when he suffered the injury, and you wouldn't be able to tell by his stats either. Starting with the Mississippi State game, he threw for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then against Vanderbilt, 328 and 3 touchdowns. Georgia, 251 and a touchdown. Arkansas, 389 and 4 touchdowns. I believe he also had a receiving touchdown in that game, plus a rushing touchdown. Texas A&M, he threw for 179 and a score, and against Michigan, he had 221 through the air and 2 touchdowns. He also had 155 on the ground and 2 scores. He had 5 rushing touchdowns in total from the Mississippi State game to the end of the season, and he also had 14 passing touchdowns over that time. So 19 total touchdowns for Arch over the last 7 weeks of the season. When did he get hurt, Zach? I can't really tell, because even in that Michigan game, we know he was hurt in the Michigan game because he had the surgery shortly after, and he clocked like a 21 mile an hour run when he had that long touchdown run against Michigan. So obviously very tough, not a huge deal that he was injured. And it's just great to see that he's progressing well, and that's the most important thing. I'll be interested, by the way, as well. This is actually a discussion that I've been kind of wanting to have on the pod anyway, but the backup quarterback battle is now obviously going to be a little bit under more of a microscope than ever, because Arch will be limited at the beginning of the spring, and it's going to allow all 3 of these guys to compete for that backup role. Now, I think that if Sark, and he's never going to admit this, and he's never going to say this to anyone, but I think that if he had his choice and his, what he wanted to happen, he would have KJ Lacey as the backup.
I agree.
He would have MJ Morris as the 3rd string, and then Bell would be the 4th string, and you would progress that way. I know he really likes what he has in KJ Lacey, and I know that everybody likes what they have in Bell because, I believe he's a number 3 ranked quarterback in the country. He's a 5-star overall recruit, and all the different things. All world player. I watched him at Elite 11. He's unbelievable. But this is going to give them an opportunity to really go in there, compete, and not have the shadow of Arch Manning lingering over them as they compete for that backup job. And I think that's really important. Like, they kind of have free reign to do what they want to do, and may the best man win for that backup QB job.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to watch. I think last offseason it was a little bit, more certain that Matthew Caldwell was going to be your backup, just because KJ Lacey was coming in as a true freshman. Trey Owens, he hadn't really shown much, and so it was a little bit more, for sure who's going to be the backup there. But it's definitely up for debate this time around. I know MJ Morris has a lot of experience. He's been at multiple stops. Him and Sark have a relationship that dates back to when Sark was the OC at Alabama, whenever he was recruiting him there. So he didn't bring MJ Morris here for no reason. He obviously, and him and AJ Milwee, the quarterback's coach, obviously view him as a legitimate backup. But you're not just going to get handed the backup spot without a single practice rep. So if KJ Lacey, I agree with you. I think it's ideal for the staff if potentially KJ Lacey wins that job, because MJ Morris, he isn't your future at quarterback. He's here as a security option because of his experience, but he's in his last year of eligibility. But who knows with these court cases, if these guys end up playing 10 more years, I mean, my goodness, but just kidding, obviously. But yeah, he's in his last year of eligibility. So he's just here as a veteran option to help the younger guys, provide some insurance if Arch does miss any time. But, I think that MJ Morris has struggled at times in his career with some interception issues here and there. And so you'd prefer that KJ Lacey wins that job if you're the staff, because him and Diabell are your future at quarterback. So regardless of who ends up being the starter next season, whether it's Diabell or KJ Lacey, you want those guys to get lots of reps, and KJ Lacey certainly would be able to if he wins the backup job, and he's going to be even more ready for 2027. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch. They probably won't make a decision once the spring game begins. That's something that's probably going to go way into the fall, right before the Texas State game. But it'll be interesting to see who is the starting quarterback opposite of Manning for the spring game. Will it be MJ Morris? Will it be KJ Lacey? We know we're going to see probably reps from all those guys. But whoever's listed as the opposite starter for Manning, because obviously the two teams go against each other, will be potentially telling about who the staff views as the backup, but it won't be a for sure answer. But it'll definitely give fans a little bit of a hint of what could come, but still a lot of time to go until we figure that out.
Yeah, and it'll be very, very interesting to watch. Nothing better than a quarterback battle, and I love it. I like all three of these guys for different reasons. You know, KJ Lacey is another guy that I watched at Elite 11, and he can pretty much do it all. He's mobile, he's accurate, he can throw on the run. He can hit pretty much every throw that you need to hit in the Steve Sarkisian system. MJ Morris is kind of a guy that's very malleable to whatever system that he is in. He's played a ton of different systems throughout his time in college. He's been at different landing spots, and he's played pretty much every variation of an offense you could think of. So that's going to be very good to have him in there as well. He should adjust pretty easily to a new role. And then Diabell's the do-it-all guy. He's the next star quarterback caliber player that you have in your system. He's probably going to be your starter in 2027. He will at least be battling KJ Lacey for that right, and I think that he's a future first-round NFL player. So 3 great options there. You couldn't go wrong, and I can't wait to see it unfold. But let's move on to another position on the offense. Zach, Steve Sarkisian on Monday. We're kind of been going through his press conference throughout the week, and he said some very interesting things about the new running backs in the system that I kind of wanted to talk about today. And, obviously last year, Texas had its worst rushing attack since I think basically World War II is what I saw. It was, easily the worst rushing attack that Steve Sarkisian has ever had as a coach or an offensive coordinator. And part of that was because of the subpar offensive line. Part of that was because you just didn't have the explosiveness that you needed at the position. In combination with that, Trey Wisner was great, but he's not the home run top end speed guy. He could pop off a run here and there, but he was really more of a grinded out tough player. CJ Baxter was not the same player that he was pre ACL injury, which was unfortunate because if he had gotten back to that level, he would have been exactly what Texas needed. Kind of a Najee Harris type like Sark had back in his 2020 offense, but that never really came into fruition. So now, you bring in those two guys leave, you bring in 2 new players in Relique Brown and Hollywood Smothers. And here's what Sark had to say about them during his media availability on Monday. He said, Smothers and Brown are explosive players, can run the style of runs that we like to run, are versatile catching the ball out of the backfield and have home run hitting ability. We have to get back to being explosive on offense that we're accustomed to being, and those 2 guys fit. And what I took that to mean, Zach, is that, they really, really want to get back to the outside zone run game, because that is, I think, what Sark likes to do the most. That's kind of how he's built his offensive line now as well, to kind of be more adept at doing that kind of a thing. And both of these players are very experienced and a very good fit for that type of running scheme. So I thought that was, kind of confirmation to me of what I thought when they brought both of these guys in, is that they're going to shift to this outside zone run game, and that both of these guys are tailor-made to fit that system.
Yeah, for sure. And the way that something I take away from what Sark's comments is that he doesn't view, at least at this point, he doesn't view either one as the for sure starter, which is a good thing. Because he even said it himself, and I think a lot of Texas fans felt the same. Whenever he's able to get one all conference running back out of the portal. He said, if you'd have told me that we would have gotten a second one, I'd have thought you were crazy, and would have thought that was unlikely. But he said that's just how the chips fell. And so they already viewed Relique Brown as a starter, of course, because everyone else had left. So, but when you get Hollywood Smothers as well, that was just a cherry on top. And I don't like to use the whole thunder and lightning cliche. Sometimes it does fit. I think with both these guys, they both have a bit of power and speed. So, and as Sark mentioned, catching the ball out of the backfield ability. We'll see how things play out, but it's going to be tough to game plan for both of those guys if you're an opposing defense, because they both bring a little bit of everything to an offense. And I love Quintrevion Wisner during his time at Texas. I thought he was an absolute dog. His mentality, the way that he rose up from a special teams contributor to a 1,000-yard rusher and being the SEC's top returning rusher this past season. You love everything that he did during his time at Texas, but at the same time, he lacked that top end speed. He wasn't as quick as maybe a Jaden Blue was, and I think those guys complemented each other well during that 2024 run, and that's why you saw a lot of success with that team. And of course, the offensive line being as talented as it was certainly helped. But it just wasn't the same this past season. I do think Wisner brought his best in some of the biggest games, even against Ohio State. Him and CJ Baxter, they had a very productive day. Wasn't anything explosive or anything, but it was consistent gains over and over. And you thought, okay, this group may have something. It just didn't turn out that way. So they had to make some changes. And I like what they did, and I'm really excited to see what Relique Brown and Hollywood Smothers can do on top of Derek Cooper, who Sark mentioned as well. You kind of imagine he's gonna be the number 3 guy, which if you're the number 3 running back in any offense, you're going to get some significant reps during the season. Injuries happen. The guys are going to miss a play here and there, and you're going to get some reps. James Simon, Michael Terry III as well in that room. So, you like to see potentially some more speed at the position, because that just wasn't really Wisner's strength. And so, we're going to see, of course, attacking the A gap and the B gaps, but I think getting outside of the tackles on both sides certainly will open this offense up. So it's going to be exciting to see what happens there.
Yeah, and both of these guys are very interesting players, and they are different, but they also have their similarities. Hollywood Smothers in particular, I think, is a lot better in between the tackles than people give him credit for. If you go back and watch the film on him, he's very quick, and he's very sudden, and he can run through tackles a lot better than people, like I said, than people give him credit for. But both of these guys combined for 32 runs of 10 or more yards last season. Smothers had 24, and Brown had 31 runs of more than that's a typo right there. 55 runs of 10 or more yards. One had 24, one had 31. And Smothers' breakaway percentage, which is the percentage of runs that turn into gains of 15 or more yards, was 52.3%, while Brown had 45.8%. And just for reference, the highest percentage for a running back at Texas last year was 27%. So that's a great thing to see. Here's another interesting thing that Sark said as well, that was really surprising to me, because at first when you bring in Relique Brown, I'm sure he expects, like, okay, I'm this team's number 1 running back and I'm going to be the starter, right? And then they bring in Hollywood Smothers, and like for a brief moment there was speculation as to whether or not Relique Brown would re-enter the portal or find somewhere else to go. But and that was quickly put to bed. They both signed very quickly. And then Sark said this: they're probably the 2 of the closest transfers. They've almost become best friends on our team already. They understand that they need each other, and they understand that historically for our program, we've always done well when we've had 2. And that, to me, is a great thing to hear when you've got 2 running backs who know that they need each other and they're going to thrive off of each other. Like if you really want to think about it, it's kind of like Relique Brown is kind of going to be your Jaden Blue. Like he's that type of runner. He probably doesn't have the same top end speed, like really few people do. as Jaden Blue, but he's pretty close, and he's very explosive, and he's a breakaway runner. And Relique Brown is kind of a little bit more of a, like, he's got the explosiveness and the speed and all that stuff, but he's a little bit more of a grinded out guy, sort of akin to he's not Jonathan Brooks. He's not that big, but they're kind of going to have a similar dynamic there, where one guy's a little bit more of the power guy, one guy's a little bit more of your breakaway guy. And but both of them have the ability to take it the distance. So it's going to be a really dynamic tandem, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, and that comment by Sark definitely stood out for sure about them being best friends, because, I mean, these guys, a lot of the transfers, Sark said that pretty much all the transfers except for one, and I'm not even sure who he's referring to. I'll have to do some research on that. But pretty much all of them except for one has been on campus for winter workouts, and they don't necessarily
probably
have
Lawrence
to
Seymour.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. So yeah, that says a lot, because he's the only guy who really has any sort of debate about or any sort of issue regarding his eligibility for next season. So it says a lot about what that these guys are already connecting. And with Relique Brown, we still haven't gotten the chance. The Texas media hasn't gotten a chance to talk to him yet, so we don't really know his personality quite yet. But it certainly seems that he's putting the team first, because in this portal era, if you're told that you're going to be the starter and you commit to a program, but then all of a sudden out of nowhere another starter level guy comes out and comes in and commits, that may ruffle some feathers. But the fact that not only has Relique Brown accepted that, but that he's also become already close with Hollywood Smothers says a lot about those guys and how they're putting a team first mentality to the front at a really key position. And that says a lot about those guys and what the running back group can do moving forward, because if you want to win a championship, you need to be a really, really connected locker room. I think that's obvious. That's pretty obvious, but it's easier said than done. So it's really good to see that. And those guys are only going to get closer as the offseason goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a dynamic running game. It's going to be the first time you've had really two number one running back types since the 2024 season, when you had Blue and Wisner. It's really going to be more akin, I think, to even the year before when you had Jaden Blue and Jonathan Brooks. Or like it's not quite the level of Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, but you kind of get where I'm going at. Like, Texas has always been at its best as a running back group, like Sark said, when they have two number one running backs, and they've had that pretty much every year under Sark, except for last year, because last year was just kind of a wash. But let's take a break, Zach. When we come back, we're going to talk about an atrocious second half from the Texas Longhorns basketball team. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back.
This episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast is brought to you by Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. Custom Built Trailers is the largest in-stock trailer dealer in Mississippi, with a variety of options to choose from flatbed goosenecks to bumper pull equipment trailers and car haulers to enclosed trailers and basic utility trailers. We do a little bit of everything. And if we don't have exactly what you're looking for in stock, we can typically have your custom built trailer built in 7 to 10 working days. 0% financing options are available, and we also deliver out of state. So give Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi a call at 601-722-9581 today and let us take care of your hauling needs. Custom Built Trailers of Mississippi. If we don't have it, we'll be glad to build it.
Welcome back to the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Again, I'm your host, Matt Galatson, joined today by Zach Dimmitt, my co-host. And Zach, Texas looked like they were playing pretty well for a while against Florida. They had a 39-36 lead at the end of the first half. And it seemed like they kind of had things, in control a little bit. I mean, if you take a lead into the first half against a team like Florida, you feel pretty good about it, no matter how the half ends or anything like that. You feel good going into the second half. Well, that didn't last very long. Florida came out in the second half and outscores Texas 48-32. That is a 16-point difference. They end up beating the Horns 84-71. And it was, the defense, again, Zach, I mean, Florida shot 59% from the field, 44% from three. Boogie Fland had 22, Alex Condon had 23. you couldn't get the stops you needed in the second half. And I know that there's a lot more to it, but this is one that Texas really, really wanted to have. And they just kind of let it slip away in the second half, and they got run out of the gym, got run out of the mood. Their own home floor, they got run off of it by a Florida team that's really good, maybe a potential national title contender, but nevertheless, it's disappointing.
Yeah, it was certainly disappointing because Texas was neck and neck with the Gators in that first half. The defense had a few slip ups, but there was some really good defensive possessions. I was there covering the game last night. The crowd was electric. It was probably one of the best crowds that I've heard this year at the Moody Center. And there's been some good crowds. I think a lot of the fans believe in what Sean Miller's doing, and so they knew how big of a game this was. There was actually a lot of Florida fans as well too. I will say they were John with some of the student section. So of course, when you're a defending national champion, you're going to have some fans travel. But it was a good atmosphere. It looked like it was going to end up being a good finish. Where both teams are going to go down to the wire, and Texas just absolutely laid down and died. And I'm not trying to sound rude while saying that. It's a lot of credit goes to Florida as well. But when you go the final 7 minutes without a field goal, you're not going to win any games, even against middle schoolers. So it's not a good recipe. When you go the final 7 minutes of an SEC game, where you need to win to potentially secure your spot in the NCAA tournament. So, Texas, they did battle back. Florida had a nice little run there in the second half. They took a 6-point lead, and then Jordan Pope started cooking. Had a 3-pointer, had a jump shot, had a layup, and then Texas, all of a sudden, it was like a 9-0 run, and they were back up 3. So Texas was up 64-61 with 7 minutes left, and Florida just blew the gates open. So, for Texas, you would have liked the score to have looked a little bit better, because it's in reality, the final score is not indicative at all of how the game went. It was really back and forth throughout. And so you would have liked the committee to see maybe like a 2-point loss or a 3-point loss to Florida. It doesn't matter too much at the end of the day, because a loss is still a loss. But Florida, they're an absolute load. Alex Condon was so impressive. Near 7-foot big man who can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot. He had a game high 23 points. And he had 4 blocks. He was insane. The Gators had a season high 11 blocks. Every time Texas would get into the lane, the shots were getting rejected. There was one time from Dalen Swain where he tries to go up for a 2-handed jam. It looks like it's going to be a poster, and Ruben Chinyelu comes out of nowhere and absolutely sends it back. Perfectly clean block. It was amazing defense by the Gators. It was very impressive to see them. I'd be very surprised if they don't, at least make it the Elite Eight. So you can't hang your head too much for Texas, but at the same time, a lot of things need to change. A season low 2 assists for the Longhorns. Absolutely unacceptable. The offense has been elite. They still had good moments there in that game. But the only 2 assists come from your 2 big men, Nick Cody and Modest Vokititas. 0 assists combined throughout the entire backcourt. You're not going to win many games doing that. And of course, Florida's defense deserves a lot of credit for that, but it wasn't really a good showing there in the final 7 minutes of the game. And it's kind of been a problem for Texas. Some of these second halves, against Ole Miss, against LSU, blew big leads. Early in the season against Arizona State, you choked the game away. Against Mississippi State, you choked the game away. Against Florida, you didn't necessarily choke the game away, but you had a chance to take it down to the wire, and you just let it slip away in the final few minutes. And so it's kind of been a repeat pattern for this team, even against Auburn earlier in SEC play. What Texas was up, I think, like 16 in the first half. They lose that game. So it's been a little bit of a pattern, and your defense needs to be better to prevent that. But in the latest bracketology from Joe Lonardi, Texas dropped 1 spot. So they are the last bye. So if they drop even further, they would be in his projected last 4 in, which would put Texas back in Dayton again, which I think they definitely want to avoid. But a big game against A&M on Saturday, and A&M is also in a similar position, so that would be a big bubble game. But yeah, this is a big opportunity to seal your spot in the NCAA tournament. you miss out. The Longhorns are still in a decent spot here. They're not as in much trouble as some bubble teams, but you still would really like to have this one.
Yeah, and the two stats that really stuck out to me in this game is that made a real difference. You mentioned one of them with just 2 assists in the game for the Longhorns, both of them coming from front court players. The other one that was really an astounding number to me when I looked at the box score, I kind of had to do a double take. Florida had 11 block shots.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Condon had 4. Thomas Howe had 2. Ruben Chinulu had 2. Micah Handlogton,
Handlington,
had 2, and then Isaiah Brown also had 1. I mean, if a team's blocking 11 shots, they're playing pretty well defensively, and that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of athletes that Florida has on that end of the floor as well. Just an unbelievably well-rounded team. Both of those stats kind of made a difference. Also, obviously that played a big difference in Texas's field goal percentage, which was just 43% and 38% from 3. But like Zach said, Texas has a big one coming up on Saturday against the Texas A&M Aggies in College Station. That game is at 3 p.m. and it tips off on ESPN2. Texas A&M currently, according to the ESPN matchup predictor, has a 65.1% chance of winning that game. And we'll preview that one more tomorrow as we get a little bit closer. But that is going to do it for another episode of the Texas Longhorns on SI podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast and comment down below on YouTube to let us know your thoughts. It really helps us out in the YouTube algorithm. Most importantly, be sure to tell somebody you love them, and we'll catch you in the next one.